Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you have a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we got some interesting summoning magic summon pool Prism events coming up today. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was not expecting it to be this particular champion pool. I was expecting it to be something different from what we've been normally seeing, which is very faction-oriented, especially with Unity champions coming out pretty aggressively. I won't lie. This is actually not a bad pool when it comes to options, especially if you're early progressing and even down the road towards late game and end game. So I'm going to break it down. We're going to kind of skim over it, and I'll give you guys my thoughts, my 2 pennies on whether or not you should go for it. As always, let's start with the amount of cost itself. It takes 35 Prism crystals to be able to obtain a Prism shard pool, with the chances for legendaries being at 6% and epics respectively at 94%. Now, in terms of the actual pool itself, there's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 champions that you get from the legendary side. So 1/8 of a chance to be able to get a legendary if you hit that 6%er of one of your choice. And it's important to kind of note that because of a particular reason. So allow me to break this down. Now, in terms of the pool itself, is it really, really good? The answer is yes, and here's why. I feel like from both an epic standpoint and a legendary standpoint, these are pretty solid champions. Let's start with early game. Early game, pretty much you almost want to say yes to anything you can get your hands on. For example, Miscreated Monster, Taragi, 2 Ally Protector type base champions have a lot to offer. Very good in a utility base. This is such as like Clan Boss, Spider, Provoking. There's a lot of utility output, and then even down the road when it comes to like some niche comps, like Taragi can be really good into areas where poison is very, very valuable. Very, very solid champion, right? Then you also have champions like Seeker, who's really well known as one of the best turn meter boosters from an epic standpoint in the game, used unanimously in a lot of different comps. Actually has comps named after him. Think about Bat Eater. The bat part comes from Seeker. Or Batman Forever, which also has to do with the bat, which is also Seeker, and Demetha, which is staple of using Deacon and Seeker. So Seeker's everywhere in a lot of comps and is very, very versatile when it comes to like clan boss based teams. So if you're looking to get a clan boss team up and running, Seeker could be a very big contributing factor towards it. Later down the road, he could also be used as a boosting champion for PvP. If you're looking to go them in a more similar go first strategy, maybe with Deacon, for example, he could boost with Deacon being in the speed aura, and you have your attack type champions boosted in there with Deacon setting up the decreased defense. You could do that as a quick go fast team. Definitely very versatile as an option. If you're looking for early game burns, although this is probably one of the more weaker ones compared to like Mordecai and some other champions that have been introduced to the game, he is one of the OG originals that could do HP burn as long as you have increased attack setting him up, which Seeker does provide, by the way. Very, very good champion. Juliana, I'm not really too partial of. I think she has something partnership-wise with Romero, which she does. Could be an okay hitter, but I think she's definitely a little bit on the lower side of things. Allure, your go-to for Fire Knight progression, especially in normal when you're first getting the ball going. Some additional CC down the road, maybe even for like Dark Fae, where she slowly segues towards pretty well. Hatatsu, my underrated champion here when it comes to Shadowkin, increased defense, continuous heals, really good for sustain, has decreased attack AoE, which is not too bad, A1 leech, as well as the ability to remove debuffs at the beginning of the turn. Very, very versatile champion. Also, he hits pretty good for an epic. Now, one of the strongest utility champions, really, really good for like Nether Spider, as well as some other content where healing is a factor. Also a great poisoner who also gets tanky as you have heal reduction in play, brings decreased defense and decreased attack on a single target, as well as activating poisons. This champion does it all, whether that's Dragon Hard or maybe some Nether Spider, like I said earlier, maybe some versatile utility style champion builds you can definitely do. Cornelia, great for faction wars to be able to start sleeping champions right off the rip. Has a very high sleep without even being booked. Can be booked up to 100%, making her effective in like Sand Devil as long as you meet the accuracy requirements. Does come with the speed aura in all battles, which is also really, really good. A little bit of built-in sustain that has to do with self-sleeping, which is not too bad. Taguar, I think he's probably by far one of my favorite epic supports that's straight up just a straight support champion. Top tier. He's the reason why I beat my Orc faction when I was first coming up, and I had Seer, just to give you context. He helped set her up. He helped keep her going. He just kept the team going for the most part, and I stand him. Great in Sin City, as well as some of the other champions I'm talking about today right now, too, as well. All these champions are great in Sin City for the most part. Aishma, faction wars for Knights Rev, as well as fusion champion for Mikage. Great outlet that way. And Dahlia, another great Fusion champion for Mikage for your early game. And you guys kind of see as I'm segueing up and we're kind of talking about a lot of different various areas, it's going to kind of scale with like mid-game, late game, so on and so forth. Ugo, great for Ogren tribes, makes the Valkyrie waves free, as well as a great champion for Hydra, if you haven't already noticed. We have a Hydra 101 showcase video playlist that you guys can kind of go and refer to. Heal, reduction removal, as well as healing, and if she's the last one standing, this will revive everybody, which is fantastic. Creoden, your entry into Fire Knight, hard, great champion that can provide some freezes, increase speed, freezes. A great complementary champion adjacent to Gina, probably my personal favorite freeze champion outside of Neldor. Lockwain, I believe, is also an epic that's used inside the fusion for Mikage, if I remember correctly. Kellen is just a damage dealer. He's probably one of the ones I would say I don't look at too aggressively, but may have some versatility in terms of being able to ignore shields while he's under perfect veil. So maybe some good synergy there with some champions that veil him initially. Now let's talk about the legendaries, and this is going to kind of, my perspective is going to kind of shift here in terms of value. Obviously, there's still some good early game implications, like Brogni being a great faction war champion, as well as a great staple for clan boss teams, especially speed tunes like block debuffs, where it's important to avoid getting decreased speed or getting stunned by the Demon Lord. You know, great champion in terms of versatility, also has the ability to burn, has a little bit he's a jack of all trades, master of none, not too bad though in all regards. If you're looking for an upgraded version for being able to tank the boss and still do the most important debuff to the boss for Dragon Hard, and normal for that matter, poison sensitivity, this guy is a poison specialist, also brings decreased attack, which makes him a little bit more tankier, and then of course he has a built-in mitigation passive with poisons in mind, which also makes it super, super strong for him to be able to do a lot of tankiness against the boss. Not to mention, he has an aura of increased ally defense by 30%, which is not too shabby. Great contribution. Then we start leading towards other areas like Hydra, where Wallmaster Thorion is really, really strong at. He's also great as a two-hitter enemy max HP champion, so if you're looking to maybe get that 100% in a boss fight, like maybe Spider, or perhaps maybe even in Sand Devils or Shoguns, if you can get that 30% plus the 20% to equal 50, reset him and do it all over again, that's your 100%, right? So there is some options where he could be playable into, but Hydra in particular is where he's really, really shining at with block buffs as well as being an enemy max HP hitter. And then of course you have Elva, who is kind of a jack of all trades in the same regards that he could be she could be very useful like Brogni in certain team dynamics where you have increased speed and the need for block debuffs for clan boss. Faction Wars is freeload with her, she keeps the team going. Revive with some extra buffs for everybody, as well as increase ally speeds by 19%, and then of course she gives a heal each ally by 10% of their max HP at the start of their turn, as well as putting perfect veil on the champion with the lowest at the end of her turn, I believe. And then her A1 always gives a continuous heal on the champion with the lowest HP, keeping the ball going for them. Then we have where I'm going to flip it now towards late game, end game. You have your Armands, who is pretty much good all across the board, all things PvP related. Great champion for Dark Fade because he has that turn reduction to everybody. You know, very, very versatile champion, but for PvP particularly, he is meta. He is the meta. And I feel like that's very, very strong in terms of being able to not only fill up where now this is like a little bit more end-game talk where you have like faction guardians in play. Thankfully, I'm a player that currently has my barbarians already filled, and my current Armands is already +1. So any gains I get now from an extra Armands would be empowerment to my current Armands, which makes him faster, more accurate, more tankier, and that just makes him more of a problem. So really, really good there. Then there's Mishinaki, who I feel like is the best Hydra champion in the game, maybe only second to someone like Toshiro when it comes to DPS, but utility, phenomenal. He is actually in my Nightmare team that does north of almost north of 1 billion for sure, and is actually getting closer to the 2 billion plus marker, which is getting closer and closer to that capability, and he is one of the heaviest hitters in that team. Hex on everybody, which allows him to ally attack whenever you're hitting a Hex target, decrease attack and decrease defense on the enemies too as well, which is also AoE, with an HP burn on the A1, increase defense by 30% as well on the aura, and he's just a menace. He's a problem. Very, very strong with someone like Mikage, who you can also get from a fusion with some of the champions you see in this champion pool. Then we have the magic damage dealers of the terrain, which is like Hafrak, who is a hitter, especially when you have your allies dying. He procs his Scorn, which does a lot of damage. And then, of course, being able to set himself up with increased attacking crit rate on his own. Really good in Stone Skin meta already as it is. Complementary in Ghost Sector teams, too, as well. Maybe not idealistic for Live Arena, but really, really impressive if you can't get around that Stone Skin to keep him going. And then, of course, Rotos. Rotos, I have a tumultuous relationship with. I have one. I don't use him, only because of the fact that it's like I have a malice towards this guy. But to be honest with you, I think I might have to pull him out myself. If I did get any additional Rotoses, that would be empowerment on the board for my Rotos currently, which would also be further incentive, which is kind of a dangerous conundrum. But this champion is very stat dependent. Not only does he scale off of attack, but he also scales off of HP, and his passive screams at like making your champion also very tanky. And in order to do damage, you also need like crit damage and his primary stats too as well. So you kind of have to build him in a way that's very, very expansive in a lot of different stats. And the more stats you add up to a build, the harder it is to be perfect at one of them. So yes, if you want to do a damage build, you have to get him crit cap, so that's crit rate, crit damage, and then their primary stats, which is 2 stats for him as well. So that's automatically 4 stats he has to worry about. Then if you want to make him a little bit more tanky, you have to lean a little heavier into HP, but not only that, maybe not neglect that defense as well. And now you're looking at, like, he's spread all over the place, right? But it's very, very worth it if you can make him a monster, very, very tanky. I've noticed a lot of people have been using him in merciless builds, which allow him the opportunity to not only reset his reset ability that grants him extra turns, so he's able to not only rocket off his Strug's ability, knocking out 1, which grants him an extra turn. If he gets that reset, then he's doing an A3 again, that's 2 people out, then he has an extra turn, and if he doesn't hit it that time, then, well, at least he's got an A2, which probably clocks out a 3rd person, and then that's leaving the last person on the table, and it's very, very dangerous, right? Now, keep in mind, he's still counterable in a lot of different measures, but he's a very strong champion regardless, and he can be very, very scary to deal with. So, I won't lie, as much as I hate to admit it, he has kind of come out of the meta and stayed, well, not even come out of the meta. He's become a little bit lower of a lower pick, but he's become relevant in the sense that he has not gone away from the meta. He has his hits and ups and downs in a sense, but he's not lost relevance. I know that he's counterable by like King, ignoring his passive, for example, but nevertheless, he's still very capable of getting in there and slamming and just destroying enemies that come at him pretty aggressively. So he's able to maintain quite a bit of a powerful stance in this meta, so he's still worthwhile to get in the right matchups, which is very relevant in our PvP terrain because we are counterpicking a lot more in Live Arena today. But that kind of gives you an idea of where all these champions are valuable. I didn't say in some other key areas, like Elva is really, really good as just a support champion in general, whether it's PvP or PvE. She's been actually very noteworthy in Sin City in particular. Same thing with like Mishinaki, for example, and Hydra. Can also be used in Spider, especially in hard whenever you're setting up with Hex and then doing big hits that could do a lot of damage to the boss, which also trickle on to the Spiderlings, which does more damage to the boss, which kills the boss, and there's a lot of value right there, right? So these champions are all very versatile. Should you go for this particular Prism event? I think the answer is yes. One, if you don't have any of these champions, a lot of these champions are pretty strong. Some in particular I would place very, very high in the meta of Hydra. Some I would place in terms of very high relevance that is meta in PvP. Relevant niche picks in PvP. Same thing with some of these. And then if you're progressing in the account, these champions have versatility in a lot of different angles. So Hydra being one of the more competitive areas, same thing with PvP. This particular champion pool speaks to that. Then from the utility of the epics alone, if you're a progressing account, has a lot of breadth to give you value in different angles that can help you grow your account to make that next step, as well as being able to maybe perhaps give you more value to something you already do have. Maybe you do have a Creon already, but hitting some of the stats to get a little bit further in Fire Knight Heart might be a bit difficult. But now, because you have empowerment on the board, you can maybe start looking at getting him from +0 to +2, +4, and now your champion's a lot easier to build. So I would say that, especially with some of the way these champions are designed and their usefulness not only in the current terrain of PvE metrics like dungeons and whatnot, they are relevant in Sin City, which is a rotating value that brings almost every champion some form of viability. So, with that being said, are you guys going to pool? I gotta check the finances to make sure we're healthy enough to be able to do it, but I am inclined to, and I won't lie, because as of right now, my Shadowkin Faction Guardians is pretty behind. Getting some Mishinakis would be really good. And even if I got to a point where this is overextended, overstimulated, and I get more champions down the road, I can empower my Mishinaki, making him stronger in the areas I currently use him, as well as other champions that are pretty PvP-centric right now or have a value of trying to get like better stats out of them. And then, of course, Rotos, as much as I love to hate him, but I'm not going to lie, he may be relevant. I do have my Undead Faction Guardians already filled up, so it would be automatic empowerment for him. which would open some doors there. So a lot of my thought process is basically how much more I can push my competitiveness. Getting my Brogni, an additional Brogni, I believe also opens the door for me to be able to finish off the Dwarves faction, which I have a third one. A fourth one would mean that I'd fill this up. I'd have to rebalance my currently existing newts to make sure that they're still in the same speed tune that we need them to be in, but that's an easy fix. And then after that, everybody is now benefiting from a +10 speed in the Dwarf faction, which is nice. So that is something I would say has some good capabilities, but I won't lie, the cost. So typically the best value you can get is the $49.99 for 210. Don't be disillusioned that, like, you know, the 99 one for 400, you lose that on 20, which is basically almost exactly enough to be able to do an extra summon. If you're left over with some scraps from the previous Prism event, that's enough to get you an extra pull, which is worthwhile. That could be the one that gives you that yellow you're looking for. So I would say that would be the better pack value to go for instead of what you're going to probably see in the shop in the coming days, which is going to be Prism Crystal Vits. It's actually already live, the 99 for 400. This is only if you are such an aggressive puller that you automatically have bought everything you could buy here. I think the two most expensive, which is the $20 and the $50 one, is the $50 one's better. The $20 one is equal to the one that you would see in the shop. And at that point, I think you'd just buy from the shop if you're going to buy. They allow at least 9 frequent purchases on a daily basis. I'm pretty sure that's going to reset daily. So you'll be able to go ham if you really wanted to there. But as always, you play towards your account's needs and benefits. And if that's something that benefits you, then by all means, you go for it, right? I won't lie. There's one other way that you could do it. Now, here's the free-to-play route. I think they do at least maybe 1, maybe 2 events that might be worthwhile to look at. I already started on it. I actually didn't finish it just yet. I should have probably done it so I could pull for you guys on the video. Unfortunately, I don't have the means to do so, so we're going to try to play as frugally as I can. As I get some extra energy to work with, I'll try to get to that 600. I will say on Plarium, I am noticing that the point cost has gone up, and I wonder why. Besides greed, and I don't want to accuse you of being greedy, but it is coming off that way a little bit. I won't lie, the extra Soulstone there is nice, as well as the 6-star attack glyph is nice. I wouldn't mind speed here, by the way. We're open to speed as a glyph too. And there's probably going to be like a tournament or event that's going to come up. Matter of fact, it's already showing it. The Dungeon Divers is going to come up down the road. It's going to be another way for you to get it, and that's how you'll be able to get maybe 1, maybe 2 summons for your Prism Shard event. Now, keep in mind, we are in the middle of a fusion, so if you are pushing for Scored, then I would caution that you probably want to maybe be patient in terms of doing anything today. We do have the Spider Tournament for about a day and 13 hours, so if we fast forward 24 hours, this will be live, and if your team is fast enough and consistent enough to be able to farm Spider pretty aggressively, that's when I would go really, really hard, because then the Dungeon Divers will be active, and you can net gain not only the tournament, but you can gain some points along the way to get you towards that Prism. So, some little strategy there in terms of like overlapping events to help get your bang for your dollar. Instead of doing all your Spider tournaments right now, maybe wait till tomorrow so that you can get the Spider as well as the extra Dungeon Diver event while pushing for the Prism. So, with that being said, I'm very curious what you guys are going to pull. I think I might. You'll have to tune into the live streams that we're going to do on Tuesday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If you haven't done it, we're on YouTube as well as on Twitch. If you guys want to be a participant and just hang out and catch the vibes that we got going on, you're more than welcome to. You get to see me a little bit more casual approach. We're a lot more degenerate, and it's a fun time. So you're definitely welcome there. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, always remember, stay ascended.